Are your parents still alive? Do you have older parents that you check in on occasionally, or maybe you care for them, whether it's across town or halfway around the world? Well, if so, you've probably gotten a phone call like, hey, honey, I can't work the remote, or I forgot my Netflix password. And it's harmless and kind of humorous sometimes until it happens about the fifth time in a day. Look, caring for mom or dad is not easy. It's a burden, but it's a burden that we lovingly accept. But it's one that many of us never expected and never really signed up for. We never expected for this to happen. With people living longer and more people wanting to age at home and remain in their homes, there's a host of issues and challenges that arise that include the remote and many more things. And the burden is on us too. Over 42 million Americans fall into what can be considered this sandwich generation, which means that we not only are facing caring for our older parents, but we have children in their teens or 20s as well. And we are sandwiched in between caring for both. It's tough. It's a stressor for your parents and for us, emotionally, financially, physically. And nobody wants to send their mom or dad to a home. We want to try and avoid that for a variety of reasons. But what if I could tell you that this simple remote and the TV that they are often glued to can give them the freedom, the independence, and help keep them in their homes longer and give you some peace of mind as well? We're going to talk about that today and many other things around caregiving on the Advanced Adulting Podcast. My guest today is Ashish Agarwal. He's the CEO of JubileeTV. On the surface, JubileeTV is a tech company, but it was one that was born out of a genuine need that many of us have. And it was so that Ashish could not only communicate, but really keep track of and become aware of the changes in his mom halfway around the world. Look, a lot of us will communicate with our parents once a week with a Zoom call or FaceTime, but that really doesn't do it justice on seeing the cognitive decline, the physical changes that they're going through. And how many stubborn parents have we dealt with of, oh, honey, I'm fine. And sometimes you just don't know. We talk about how affordable technology and things in your home can allow you to prevent major accidents, major problems, and be able to take care of things before they become a significant issue. We talk about how to communicate big changes in technology with your parents. And we talk about how to ease the burden on you, the caregiver. I think this is something that a lot of us can identify with. And I think there are people, that's what we're focusing on these few weeks here on the Advanced Adulting Podcast, is introducing you to people and resources that can make your parents' life and our life better. This is an advanced adulting subject that nobody really tells you about or talks about, but so many of us have to deal with. I think you're going to love this conversation. You're going to love the questions that it answers and hearing about this particular product as well. If you like it, go to getjubileetv.com, use code ADULTING at checkout for $25 off. It's good stuff, and I'm happy to be partners sharing messages about advanced adulting. This is a pretty quick episode. And it's worth it to watch to the very end. It's going to help you and your parents. So let's get started. I'm Bradley Richardson, and this is Advanced Adulting. Ashish Agarwal, welcome to Advanced Adulting.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Well, we're going to have a great conversation because we're going to cover a lot of different topics here. It's interesting because now people would probably think, well, for Advanced Adulting, what are you doing having a tech CEO on? But it's a couple of reasons. It's one, what you represent, the company you represent with JubileeTV, but it's also something you've lived as well. And I think that's something we'd love for this audience to learn more about because it affects everybody. And what I want to start with is, we're focusing a lot on the issues that impact all of us at this stage of life. And caring for our parents is one right at the top of the list and something we never planned for. What do you're in the midst of it. What do you see as, really the caregiving space and where the burden lies right now? Where do you see that?
Yeah, maybe it's a long answer and try to be really succinct about it from a lot of different varieties. I grew up in a very different culture. So that's what pops into my mind right now. I grew up in a world where, I grew up in India. I think it wasn't as advanced as it is today. My parents still believe that kids, like especially men, this is where the culture is, live with their parents they never go into their own home, and they take care of their aging parents by living with them. My mom still feels that that was the worst mistake of their lives and my life, that staying away from them, right? So we grew up in a culture where predominantly children would take care of their aging parents. Parents didn't live that longer either. They had children earlier. So the society was all revolving around that. Now just fast forward even 20 years, mobility has increased. The number of children we are having has decreased rapidly, and older adults are living longer, much longer, right? The life expectancy growth, just barring COVID, has been on a dramatic rise. By some stretch, we ourselves are going to live past 100, right? And how is the society, including children of ours, we as children of our parents and our children are going to take care of us? It
Right.
is a massive change, like a tectonic change, as healthcare systems have sort of been reactive but improved over time to allow us this longer life, right? So Bradley, to me, the central question was I face this every single day, the dilemma of how do I take care of my aging parent where I'm further away. And I am a born techie. Like, I have over 100 patents. I have a PhD. I was born really poor, but I think I loved math. Now I teach math to my high school kids, and her friends. And I realize how difficult math is. But what I'm trying to say is I'm hardcore techie. So I said, look, it has to be solved. We've solved world's problems with tech. This is the next big problem I want to indulge myself in and solve with tech. So that was the genesis 3 years ago when I told the board, look, I want to take this company in that direction and really focus on the efforts, right? So longer answer to your short question, but that really is what pops into my mind as to my personal journey and genesis of why this is the biggest problem that the tech needs to handle today. Is the buzzword today, but really where tech needs to step in is not as much taking care of teens as it is about taking care of older adults.
Well, it's funny. It's whether it's technology, whether it's marketing, whether it's a lot of things. I mean, there's so much focus and emphasis on the younger generation, which of course we were when we were, just starting out in our teens and 20s. You didn't think about that. But from a corporate perspective or products or tech, there is so much emphasis on the younger generation. And you hit it right on the head with longevity, and we're living longer. It's a blessing and a curse in a way. And the thing that I keep coming back to, and I'm glad you share a little bit about your background. I'm sure that our upbringing culturally may be different, but this idea of caring for your parents because of the extended age is really a global issue. It doesn't matter if you are halfway around the world, if you're in Texas or California or wherever. The disconnectedness is something right there because even in certain parts of, I grew up in Texas, and there were certain parts of Texas where you had your grandparents across town. And now, I mean, my kids, I have 3 kids who I'm in California, one's in Texas, 2 are in New York, and they're going to stay there. And I think that's just a harder thing, but it's more and more common for families because you don't have that centralized unit where, hey, I'm going to go sleep over at grandma's house, or is grandma or grandpa are declining, you really have a feel for what's going on. And that disconnectedness, not just logistically, but I think emotionally, socially, that's a big problem, and people don't talk about that enough.
Absolutely. Like my mom didn't tell us that she had a lump in her breast for 1 year. When we went there, she's like, look, last year, she said, I don't want to alarm you guys, but do you think this needs checking? So my wife was there. She said, she was horrified. She's like, you absolutely have to right now, right? And when I asked her afterward, and she was diagnosed with late stage breast cancer, I was like, Mom, why didn't you tell us? Like, what are you going to do? You're there. Like, why should I worry you? So you're exactly right. It's not just the physical distance, it's the emotional disconnect. Yeah, I get 10 minutes every other day. What am I going to talk about, right? Things like that. So, yes, absolutely. Like, close your eyes and imagine the world where we are struggling to support our own kids and aging parents, right? Like, struggling from a good way, but the world wasn't designed for this problem, right? Where you are having kids later. We can have kids later now. You're more focused on careers and things like that. So the world wasn't designed for sure. Like 30, 40 years ago, the world never anticipated this problem. And it's come to us fast.
Yeah. I think the other thing, and you mentioned that about your mom, and I think my mom has since passed, but it's the stubbornness really, of being a parent. Oh, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to burden. I don't want to be a burden. And I understand and respect that, but that leads to a whole host of issues. And, how are you doing? I'm fine. Yeah. And one of the things that, you can talk to them, but there's so many other things that, and I think that's the beauty of tech and a lot of what you're doing too is, there's ways for you to be able to, I hate the word monitor, but really just to check up and to be present and aware of what's going on the things that maybe they're not telling you that are really important.
Yeah, so I'll probably segue right into what was my thought 3 years ago, right? And why did we create Jubilee TV and what Jubilee TV does really, right? So I saw two things happening. I saw one thing very clearly was that they needed a very simple they could to interact with. And phones and tablets were not a good alternative, especially when they get really older, right? It's close, it's cumbersome, it's small, it's prone to spam. But TV was their comfort, right? It was large, it had a simple remote control. So they were comfortable with the one tech they were comfortable with was TV. And my genesis of thought was, can I this is like sort of thinking Turing machines, and I'll go back to a little bit of my scientific background. But can I replace myself, right? There, or at least like hugely augment the need for me being there with them. Can a system come close to it? And even my first publication in 97 or 98 was on neural networks and Viterbees. So I said, okay, look, this is all going to grow really fast. Can I use AI, TV, to powerfully, essentially support me in taking care of my aging parents? So can't replace the emotional aspect, but can it be powerful enough where they get the comfort they need, saying, hey, look, my son is observing, keeping an eye, he knows, okay, if I fall down, I'm not going to lie for 15 hours without nobody responding to me. Knows that, in and out, how am I doing? How am I moving around? So it actually gives my mom some comfort, gives me the necessary information. And that was the genesis, saying, connected device, simplify TV for mom, because that's very important for me, for her to be able to watch great content, stay engaged. That's their lifeline, right? 6, 7 hours they need to consume. They don't have hundreds of people to talk to. They don't have busy lives anymore. So that is how Jubilee TV was born, right? The idea that seniors simplify TV, they get the ability to stay connected, engaged, mentally and physically fit, and families derive value in terms of peace, visibility, and key insights so that they can stay ahead in this caregiving case. Because most systems are reactive. We wanted to create a system where proactively it gives the necessary data so you can take care. So that's what Jubilee TV is.
Well, it's one of the things I think is so interesting about it, and how you approach it and approach the market with it is, there's a lot of things out there that help you monitor, like they fell or something like that. But you all do it in this wonderful, almost a Trojan horse approach, because it's hey, no one, I mean, I was there, I was there, everything of helping mom deal with the remote, helping mom or dad figure the remote out. Everyone can identify with that because you get the calls, you get the frustration, and it's something that's almost, oddly humorous in a way of, oh God, I have to deal with her again on this. But it's this great Trojan horse because it opens up the opportunity to do so much more that is genuinely caring, genuinely compassionate, genuinely helpful, besides just making it easy to change the TV.
Yeah. So, the dreaded call, I got logged out of my Netflix. What do I do? They're asking mom to enter that password.
Yeah, what's my password?
Yeah, I had this scenario with my dad. It's like it took me 2 hours, and he was getting irritated actually more than me because he thought he was wasting my time. Right? I'm like, Dad, you don't need to worry. Like it was 9 p.m. for me. We stayed on call for 2 hours to fix his TV. This is a while ago. So what I realized is, look, if you put like a doggy collar on your mom, dad, they're never going to accept it, right? It just, they need independence. They need like, okay, I don't need this. You put a camera in their room, just a camera to say, Mom, I'm going to just observe you. Like, I don't need that, right? They're still very, very proud. They want to be independent, all of that. I said, look, what do you need help with? That you are clearly agreeing that, hey, if you help me here, you're my best son. So you're like, okay, TV is the surface, right? TV is the device. The view And now you can start to show, look, you can go visit different places live. I can stream juniors baseball league game. We have initial customers who told us they were streaming their pastor service from the phone to mom's TV
Oh,
for three. There's a mom, like, I wasn't born religious, but I know a lot of people who have forever spent time going to a church every 3 hours. And now to see
right.
the same pastor give them the sermon remotely on a TV, it just magically first transforms the whole life, right? Right itself. So now mom is okay with the device. Now you layer
Sure.
on the care on top. So that's really, you use the word Trojan horse. To me, it's all about designing it for the older adult where they feel comfortable, as opposed to
Mhm.
you saying, I need you to put this. This is what most people are
Right.
approaching this problem with. The cameras, the fall detection devices, they are all saying, kids, you need to put this for your mom. But mom is saying, I don't need this.
They feel like a child then. That's
Right?
it. I remember dealing with my mom, and it was, you know, my sister and I had the best intentions, but it was met with a ton of resistance because, she was fiercely independent. She felt, she ended up living with my sister before she passed. And like a lot of people, we talk about aging at home in a moment, but yeah, just how you communicated that and how you present that, that's so key. And having it be accepted and useful, and they're not a child. They have a great deal of pride still, and you have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, the duality, right? When I have now, where I take care of my in-laws and my parents both. My father-in-law has dementia. So, and I was telling a friend who's like, he was saying something, and I said, look, you have to deal with your parents a little bit like a child, but also not like a child. Like, it's a duality that you have to walk a line because
Mhm.
of course we take care of our children, so we know how that behaves, and
Mhm.
our parents' behavior is not very far away from that, but still they have
Right.
this sort of they are more experienced in some way than us, so it's a very thin line, right?
Stubborn as a
Yeah.
3-year-old, but yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
but
exactly right. Stubbornness of the teenager, but the ability to knock us over our head and say, "Look, I don't need this."
right. You know what's interesting though is a couple of things. I know that, because obviously with advanced adulting, I mean this whole area and sector of caregiving and dealing with older parents is important to me and this audience. So I'm deep into it. It seems like a lot of the services and products out there, you and some others are leading the charge in making them purpose driven and purpose built. But a lot of it, and I know when, my mom, it's been several years, so nothing like this existed. We had to kind of jerry rig things. And like she had her iPad, which, was met with some success. You're doing a Zoom call and things like that. But I think that's the interesting thing is, how so many entrepreneurs and executives like yourself are approaching this, but not from, yes, it's a great market opportunity, fantastic business opportunity. But most everyone I've talked to has approached it purpose driven because a need that they experienced on their own. They get it. I mean, it hits home.
Yeah, yeah. No, when I designed my first, universal remote at Harman, my
Mhm.
mother-in-law used it until it was no longer updatable. And she was very, very upset. 6, 8 years she used it, and then Harman stopped supporting it. And then one day she couldn't control something, and I call her Amama. Amama, I mean my grandma. Like, we call her mom as kids relationship. Amama, sorry, this
Mhm.
has stopped. Like, oh, but this was my lifeline. So you realize that they need people to think about them proactively and how they use things and make sure that it fits for them. When you design mass market products, especially, you're looking at a longer life of a product. The businesses are also for profit, they're not for charity and things like that. So all
Mhm.
businesses look saying, hey, where can I get, large companies, they all think the larger market is younger audience, right? And because they'll stay with them longer, but those devices just don't work
Mhm.
for the older adults because they weren't designed for them. So when we started this for 1 year, I'm telling you, like, we got very good slap on our faces, right? With older adults saying, look, I can't use this, right?
Right.
But then as you refine, still, a lot of challenges to climb over this. But, last year after we launched our product, it has been an amazing ride. You see people crying. There are people write long thank you notes. Yeah, it is. Basically, my own thesis is we are all going to die. Charity. So if we can do some good, even through ourselves, which is if we create all of this, so our kids can take care of us. It's really
Right.
good. So while it is a good market, it is also a very emotionally driven market. So you get
Yeah.
all of this goodness.
And I love how you said that. It really does. When you stop to think about it, it impacts and helps everyone, not just your parents. But we start off this conversation talking about this sandwich generation, putting a label on that. But it is. I mean, people our age now, you've got either younger kids, college kids, just launching life that you're still watching for them. You've got mom and dad on the opposite end, and then there's ourselves and the stress. I mean, let's talk about that for a second, because I know that's something that you see, and this addresses as well. Is just what are some of the implications of how we're getting squeezed, how caregivers are getting squeezed with
Yeah,
this?
being a really large, 42 million Americans, like we in America, 42 million, we take care of our insanity generation. So we take care of our aging parents and children together along with careers. Okay, overwhelmingly, women take the brunt of it. 10 plus hours are spent taking care of older adult per week. Okay, in this, the emotional and financial stress is really, really high. Like personally, also, 2 years ago, we couldn't manage all these things. Like with my startup career, my wife was in a startup, really. So we said, okay, we got to take a step back and see, look, daughter's turning a teenager, my oldest. My in-laws, my parents, my wife went there for a month to take care of my mom in India when she had her surgery. Like all of this requires time and focus. So at one stage, you're thinking, okay, look, now my kids are growing older. I'm going to push hard on my career. Then suddenly you see your parents come in your rear view, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't push one. So there are so many rapidly changing implications of this space, right? So the crisis, the caregiving, the word for sandwich generation is absolutely real. And it is so distributed that the voice raised to a level like climate change, fires. Hopefully, people will address those. But even our use of social security money, okay, is going to dwindle really fast, and we can't take care. So it is a big problem that is just waiting to explode. So my sense is you stay ahead of the game and take care of the crisis before it happens, because taking care of crisis after is always more expensive.
Well, it's funny how I was talking with another CEO in this space, Neil Shaw, about the idea of how private sector is really leading the charge on this. That, regardless of political affiliations, the government is not going to step in and be able to take care of this. It's going to be the private sector that's going to be addressing these needs, and creatively so.
Yeah, I think so. Neil also, like I spoke to him a couple of months ago as well. The whole idea, his genesis is that a little bit older, you need a friendship, you need people to take care of you. So how can you make it affordable? Really, how can you make it safe and affordable? And very similar sides of the problem, right? Which is I'm looking at it saying, what technology can you put into a home that really allows you peace of mind, proactive insight, say time to take mom for physical therapy so you can avoid a fall, as opposed to saying, oh, mom's fallen down, now I got to do a 911 call and take her to ER. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, stay mom hydrated, right? Big thing, right? Let her take her meds on time, let her talk to her friends easily, see birthdays of my kids, like all of these things, right? How do you do it? So it is true, like very clearly. I hope that government will react to this is a massive problem, right? And maybe us as private sectors will be the torch bearers to show what is the path. But I am hoping that we can work out also. We are all like, we've seen government move very, very slow in this process. Like both of us saw, we were like really chatting about how great it has been for us to not be dependent, because a lot of startups, the only way they can enter this market, okay, is through government, like either healthcare. And it takes years and years before they reach the light of the day. We just took our own running it path and said, we are going to, there's a growing crisis, we are going to go direct to consumers and clean the market out. And other thing is, when you go through government, you actually are designing systems for their needs along with the seniors and families' needs. What we were able to do is just singularly focus on the audience and design for them. So it makes a huge difference in that process.
Well, a couple of things you mentioned there. You're right. The ability to pivot and change on how the customer is actually using it in real life in real time. Very few people can do that. I mean, only someone who is a startup or a fairly nimble organization can do that. The other word that you mentioned that I think is critical, but almost unspoken, is the expense. I mean, care at least in America right now, it's outrageous. I mean, not only forget medicine, forget therapy, for any of those things, but just having someone in home, putting someone in a home, and more people aren't wanting to do that. So this whole aging at home thing, and we talked about, is even more important. And we talked about the burden of caregivers from a professional standpoint, putting your life on hold, but it's just those making decisions. That, making those decisions among siblings, making those decisions. And I know for us with my mother, it was one of those cases where we knew it was going to happen. We knew. And you talked about it for years, 5 years. Oh, we're going to have to do something about mom, until that moment when, my mom's in a different town. My sister's in Atlanta. I'm in Dallas, and mom had fallen in the shower and was there for 24 hours. And it is suddenly this 911 of, how do we take care of her immediately? Where's she going to go? Who's she going to go with? How are we going to pay for it? All of these. And so the being proactive, I can't stress that enough, and love what you're acknowledging it, and that other people are as well. And this product does that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the emotional burden is one part, but the financial burden is extremely large. And it started to dawn on me last 5 years. How are we going to manage? We ourselves are really fortunate to be in the top 1% of people in the world. If we have to think about the financial implications, how are people going to take care of this? You have somebody come into your home, you're talking about $200 a day, right? You have to put mom into a home. She doesn't want to go. That's like, first of all, she doesn't want to go because she's like, let me die in my home. As harsh the words might be, it's like, I'm going to now at this age go into some unknown place, make new friends. It's just such a massive implication on them, and the cost is huge, right? So so I think to allow them fully independently, right, live in their own home while we can take care of them, and then a little bit later on, maybe if they are indeed alone, send somebody to help is okay, right, later on. But initially, at least through that journey, if we can even delay they're going into a retirement home by even like few months, that's massive. Maybe we could probably even really cultivate the whole society to allow seniors to really live healthy until the very end in their home. So my goal is singularly that. Can we create systems wherein we let seniors age healthy, which means mentally, emotionally, and physically, until the very end, if I use that word, in their own home, right? And people don't want to talk much about that, but if that is the scenario, we will all be in a much better place.
Well, I think there's so many elements involved with that. I mean, just the socialization, you probably have a better handle on the stats, but I mean, cognitive decline, anything like that, once you leave the home and you go somewhere else, I mean, I know my mom was terrified of that, of like, if I go somewhere else, it's going to be a fast decline. And, no child wants to do that. Sometimes it's a necessity, but yeah, if you can keep them in there, the better. Let's talk for a second about how this is for anybody in general of having these conversations, but also how you introduce a product like JubileeTV to somebody. How do you have the conversation with your parents? Because they're averse. I mean, I know, because we talked about earlier, pride, fear of technology. It could be anything. What do you see, and what do you recommend on having the conversations or introducing it to your parents?
It was my baby. They always wanted
Right.
my baby in the.
Look at our boy, he's done this.
Yes,
right.
Exactly, right. But what I've heard from a lot of customers now, a lot of friends who put this, right, their initial hesitance was whether mom will accept it. And I'll tell you how they got past it. And now what they're saying is actually mom is happy about it, in the sense mom knows that I'm keeping an eye on her. So she actually feels more comforted than agonized, right? So my suggestion, from a sense of saying, look, I'll be able to look, I can't come in every single time. So, your parents care about you. So really you're trying to say this is a great product. It's tried and tested. So I'm going to do this. You can continue to use what you're using. So there's no change in you. Or if they're adventurous, which 88%, you'll be surprised. The seniors say, look, what do you mean I can't learn something new, right? They'll pick up our
Right.
remote and they're like, yeah, oh, this is great. So you ease them into saying, look, you can keep on doing what you were doing. You can or migrate to something new, which is great. And what it will do for me. So as a kid, I'm telling them is when you need that, I don't need to drop everything and run to you, right? I can just do it remotely for you. That will save us huge amount of time, both. So I think knowing that she's helping me in my own agony really helps her overcome this first, right? And then as soon as she gets used to it, she's never wanting to let it. Now, it's not just me, but they're saying that my parents don't want to let go of this device. So as a kid, you first go and say, look, it's going to help me. And you can choose to continue to do whatever you're doing or learn something new. And then once they start to see a tremendous value, even if you don't want to use it, I want to keep it.
Right. Yeah, and I before we jumped into our conversation in the introduction, I explained to people what Jubilee TV is. But for those of you who are just joining here in the middle, it's not a totally separate device. It's not a separate TV. It takes your existing TV, and it is a unit and a software AI that not only allows you to work there remote, but there's so many other things. Give us a rundown of some of the interesting features of what you can do with this.
Yeah, imagine like a very smart AI capable box with camera and microphone and a very simple remote, voice remote that sits between all the source devices you have, like, whether it's a or anything, and literally point of face to the TV. There is no, so look at it from the senior's point of view, right? There's no source switching anymore. If you say Netflix, TV turns on, it knows Netflix is on your Roku, switches to that input on our box, plays Netflix for you. You say CNN, switches it back to your set-top box, plays CNN for you. So, and you can put channels in your favorites, like, you watch 10 channels maybe out of, 300 that you have.
Right.
So it provides the seniors with a very, very curated, personalized interface. That's where it starts. But what is important is on the family side, on the app. So they use an app. They can see what's on the TV. So they can see what video is going through our system. And now they know what your mom is watching. And if there's any issue, they literally are in the room. It's as if they're in the room and using the phone, they can control every aspect of the TV. They know the TV state. They know how to find a show. They know how to put in a password remotely. So it's like a remote desktop for your TV. So that's how it starts. So that's the first feature, right? Now we're going to build it, right? So your parents can continue to use the remote. They can continue to use our remote or let families drive it. The next layer of all of this, as we build the system, is about communication. So you can do life-size video call. Really, really interesting, right? So you don't have to see mom's chin or face all the time, just like this, right? Mom doesn't have to just see your like small face, right? Now she's seeing a large screen. It's a very different experience, right? Messages, reminders, photos, and videos. Like, so all forms of communication that we do today on our phone, which is our lifeline, becomes a lifeline for seniors on the other side. I can send reminders saying, hey, mom, it's time for you to take medication, and TV turns on if it's off. You can set all those, like, hey, don't alarm on, or alarm on. Like, all of these features are there for you as a kid to really dial in, right? So communication. Then the next tier that comes in, I started to talk about is AI. So, or what we call activity feed. So what has your mom done in the day is really the key. How much, how many times TV turned on, who came into the room, who went away. So rich insights about mom's daily activities are given to you on the app. So you can monitor. You can finally control who gets to see this information. Usually it's what we call the active child, right? Who's taking care of this. So, and then you can onboard any family members you want, any number they can call. All of these things are there, right? So that's really what the product is.
And it's affordable too. I mean, it's you have a relatively inexpensive box, and it's a subscription service that people can get to use the interactivity with it.
It is. It is. So, normally a system like this that allows you caregiving, we talk about thousands and thousands of dollars, right? Like, even sending somebody to your home is like $200 a day,
Right.
right?
Every
For,
day.
yeah. You just look at hearing aids, like, mom got hearing aid, $5,000 for a hearing aid, right? But you look at what Apple's doing with headphones now, right? Starting to come close. And I was always in consumer electronics, like iPod and Harman. So how to make it affordable was key. So for less than $1 a day, so you can buy the hardware is $199, and then subscription is $29 a month. So for less than $1 a day, you get all this that really saves you tremendous amount of money, right? Not just convenience of you not having to go into Netflix Palms TV, but you heard enough number of people saying you've repeatedly, almost like on a weekly basis, saved a 911 call, which would otherwise cost $3,000, right? Or I'm fairly clear my mom can stay in her own home for much longer. You save thousands of dollars in that process, right? So I think for a very, very affordable price, we can save a lot of money.
I love that. And again, I've used that word so many times, but I know that's important to everybody, regardless of your income. It's expensive. I mean, to have something and a resource that allows you to do so much that's affordable is just truly a lifesaver for everybody. It makes mom and dad feel good, and it's good for you as the child as well. And anybody here, look, if you go on, we'll put all the information in the notes there, but if you go on, get Jubilee TV and use code adulting, you'll get $25 off of the hardware, and you can get using it for your mom and dad. So we talked about some of these different layers that it does. And I know that you had mentioned the ability, it would be great to have the ability to see your mom and as the changes are going on, and that's one of the benefits of it. What are some of the clues to look for? Because you are remote. You're going to be maybe halfway across the country or the world. I know that you all have done some things on clues to look for to indicate maybe changes in mom's health that you can see through your TV, which I think is unusual. You wouldn't think, well, how can I tell if mom's healthy or not or changing through her TV? What are some things to look for?
Yeah, I think the first thing right now is just seeing mom in her space. Like when you see mom in her own space, and we have a feature now called drop in, wherein you can and people love it. Like large number of people ask, I don't want to wake up mom. I don't want to have to turn on the TV, things like that. Can I just see how mom is, right? Very simple feature. First thing is, as you see mom in her space, it gives you great visibility. Second one is about her TV behavior, TV watching behavior. Okay, very, very powerful. So when does she turn on the TV? How long does she watch the TV? Including a little bit of, what she watches. All of that gives you rich clues. Meaning, of course, there are alarms. If she didn't turn off the TV in the night, something is not good. So there are mission critical alarms that you can set. She didn't turn on the TV that day. Something is wrong. She always watches TV. So TV watching behavior is a major source of data that you can know how mom is doing. In fact, I almost know, depending on what she's watching, whether she's in a happy place or not. Really, you get to know your parent like your child, saying, okay, mom, why are you watching this sad show? Why didn't you watch? Right. It's like, so that is one thing. The second layer is camera. So how many people were in the room, how much she moved, did she go to take a breakfast or not? So you can set those triggers. You get a picture. You can even get a picture along with it of your mom. So that's the second. These are already existing features in the product, right? So those give you the clue. And then as the system learns about your parent, it will start to become more and more powerful, which is what each of those tools are. ChatGPT scraped the internet and is giving you, what the internet is about. Once we know about your mom, the system will tell you, okay, look, this is what you need to do. So that's really our path forward.
Fantastic. Well, I love it. I wish that I'd had it for my mom, but I'm happy that we can at least introduce this and you and Jubilee TV to so many other advanced adults and people out there who can use it and benefit their parents with it. So let me ask you 2 more questions. What are you most excited about right now? It could be anything. It could be personal, professional, but what are you most excited about right now?
To me, look, this is, I am an entrepreneur at heart. So, to me, to be able to do two things, to make an impact in this world,
Mhm.
in a really meaningful way, really, really, which is, you see stories, it is heartwarming. And I can see now that there is a chance that we can put Jubilee TV in every senior's home. So
That's
that is fueling like it's so much adrenaline into me in the last like 6 months. Yeah, people are like, you seem to be like a teenager who's not sleeping. Like, you go to a dorm and you're studying in the day and you're partying in the night. Like, what's happening at this? So that you ask me what is exciting to me, the exciting of this possibility into every home and make a large impact, okay, both
Mhm.
emotionally and financially on both
Right.
sides. That is
Yeah.
great. Like, it doesn't happen often. So this is what I'm most excited about.
That's wonderful. Okay. So imagine you have a time machine and you get to go back 20 or 30 years when you are a young man just starting out, and you get 1 minute with your younger self to talk to them. What advice would you give your younger self about navigating this stage of life?
It's a very interesting question, something that I really did not think about. But what I would say is that uh, plan to have two or possibly four extra kids, like in your calculation.
Hmm?
Okay, like
Okay.
when I was in my 20s, I thought I'll have two or three was the goal, and I have
Mhm.
3 kids. I should have told myself plan to have 5 kids, like
Okay.
two more than what you would have, and plan your life like that. And that's what I think the world will be today.
That's very good. Ashish Agarwal, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you're doing for us and for our parents. So thank you for being here.
Do you have older parents? Whether you care for them across town or across the country, you need to know about Jubilee TV. It's a great way to be able to stay in touch with your mom or dad to help them out with any crazy technology and remote issues, but also is a great way to keep track of them and to communicate with them through your TV, regardless of location. Look, it's another way to show that you care and to give them and you some peace of mind. Check them out at Get Jubilee TV and use code ADULTING at checkout for $25 off. It's definitely worth it, and we're happy to have them as a sponsor of Advanced Adulting and the Advanced Adulting Podcast.